February 14th. The Valentine Day should be celebrated as Cow Hug Day. But we don't give the same respect to the cow's life partner. There are languages in the nation, but there is no national language in the constitution. All languages are the creations of humankind. Religions claim something is Veda Bhasha, something is Deva Bhasha. There is no such thing as languages created by Almighty. Would you subscribe to the national education policies condemnation of English as an instrument of subordination? And would you subscribe to our cultural pride is in Sanskrit? The official language during a monarchical age is different from the official language during a democratic age. No Sanskrit literature has anything against a graded social order. So regional language consumes nearly 90% of the allocation meant for any language. I am very happy to be here this morning to interact with you. First of all, let me introduce as an alumnus of this college. Some 57 years ago, I did my MA here. And I used to sit in the classroom adjacent to this block. 1964-66. That batch produced several prominent politicians, including P. Chidambaram and Y. Gopalasamy and so many others. But I did not become prominent in politics because my economic condition was such that I had to devote entirely on education, completing my course. I did not have the privilege of diverting my attention to anything else. So I concentrated only on studies, got through it, became a teacher. I commenced my teaching career 1966, September 22nd. So formal teaching took nearly some 36 years. Afterwards, not so informal, but as a guest faculty, I continued my teaching. Today, I have got some 57 years of teaching experience. Many of you would not have born when I commenced my teaching career. Okay. I am interacting with the modern day students. It is an interaction between two generations. A generation who suffered due to several constraints on education. I belong to that generation. And you belong to a generation which is offered so many opportunities, but many of us are unwilling to take up the challenges. So the contrast, you'll have to think over it. Of course, because of the constraint of time, I will confine myself to a few questions. First of all, let us all be very clear that language is the most valuable, precious creation of humankind. All languages are the creations of humankind. No language is created by divinity. Though religions claim something is Veda Bhasha, something is Deva Bhasha, there is no such thing as languages created by Almighty. Almighty has entrusted, empowered us to do everything. We evolved our languages. The evolution of languages depended on our socio-political and economic conditions. Language is a part of our cultural transformation. Everything undergoes change. The earlier speaker referred to the extinction of many languages earlier. Friends, you know that Darwin's theory applies to languages too. Struggle for survival, survival of the fittest. Many languages became extinct because they could not satisfy the conditions. They were not fit for survival. Even after 2500 years, Tamil is able to survive because it has the fitness to survive. When Tamil commenced its literary activity, there was no English. There was no even Chaucer's English, leave alone the Shakespeare English or Bernard Shaw's English. It is one of the oldest languages in the world. It can be compared only with Chinese language. No other language survived so far. But this language was condemned by some as mean language, Nicha Bhasha. It is not Deva Bhasha. And today, there are many people having so much interest in promoting Tamil. In Tamil tradition, though you are students of English literature, I think that you are also having a little knowledge about Tamil. Our ancient Tamil is known as Sangha Tamil. But today some people say that it is Kashi Tamil, not Sangha Tamil. There are new patterns for Tamil language. We welcome the new patterns. But every patternage has a hidden agenda behind it. So today we are constrained to discuss language issue on various grounds. There is a social reason to discuss the language issue. There is a cultural reason to discuss language issue. There is a political reason to discuss language issue. There is an economic reason to discuss this language issue. It has so many dimensions. Language issue has many dimensions. Certain factors should be known to you. Friends, constitutionally, there is no national language. There are languages in the nation, but there is no national language in the Constitution. There is reference only to official language and regional languages. There is no national language. Why? There was no mention to national language. Because our constitution makers, founding fathers of the Constitution, knew very well that India is a nation of diversities. Diversity does not mean the branches of a single tree. On the other hand, many trees contributed to a forest, something like that. Every tree has its own distinct qualities, distinct past. So, they took into consideration that basic fact. Hence, they avoided to mention any national language, because this Indian nation was a newly created nation. It was not an ancient nation. It was a land of ancient civilizations, but it was not an ancient nation. The India that we see today was created during the freedom struggle colonial period. The intellects were unified. They wanted to liberate this country from foreign rule. The rulers whose interests were elsewhere. They were here to exploit the resources of India. They wanted to have self-rule. And how the intellectuals were united? Not through Sanskrit. Sanskrit was not a liberating language. Only English unified them. The intellects of Bengal, the intellects of Bombay, the intellects of Madras Presidency, they could communicate each other only in English. Then the urge for liberation, how this feeling was promoted through vernacular languages. Neither Hindi nor Sanskrit played any role in creating a sense of Indianness. Having known this, if you acknowledge this is a fact, would you subscribe to the national education policies condemnation of English as an instrument of subordination? And would you subscribe to the national education policy insistent that our cultural pride is in Sanskrit and our liberation pride is only through learning everything, including medicine, engineering, everything, only by avoiding English? There is a conspiracy behind this proposal. You belong to a different generation. People from different communities, different economic background gather here. The social integration is the very basis of any development. English served that purpose. Englishmen gone, but that English language was had a unifying effect on us. What was the condition earlier, prior to the arrival of English in 1840 as an official language? Until 1840-42, what was the official language of colonial India? It was Persian, not English. Because that was the language used by the earlier rulers, the Mughals, the Nawabs, Nizams. They adopted Persian. Even today you have got Persian words in our day-to-day administrative system. Shrestha and taking leave, Raja. So many Persian words are there. So Persian language was our official language earlier. Before that, during the Guptan age, from 4th century AD to 7th century AD, Sanskrit was the official language. When Ashoka was there, Prakrit was the official language. Because the official language during a monarchical age is different from the official language during a democratic age. In monarchical age, the king does not bother what the people think. His orders must be carried. To convey his orders, he makes use of the bureaucracy. Every time, even today, even during the colonial period, there are two categories of bureaucrats: vested interest and upcoming bureaucrats. So when the British were ruling us, there were English bureaucrats who were occupying top position. The secondary position was occupied by those segments in our Indian society who were always in the forefront. They owned land, they occupied offices, they dictated terms to others, they decided which is justice, which is injustice. That was monarchical age. So in the monarchical age, the monarch made use of the vested interest to have their stranglehold over the masses. But in a democratic age, the people should have a say in the governance. So here, it is not Persian, it is not English, or it is not Sanskrit, but it is the people's language which will determine the quantum and quality of democratic system. Only when the language of people is used, then the government becomes people's government. If there is a foreign language used for it, you cannot call it a Swadeshi government. It is being diluted. But in a federal system, India is a federal country. There are so many linguistic groups, cultural groups, ethnic groups in India. It is a federal union of states. Federal system. In a federal system, the language policy must be in such a way that the comforts are equally distributed. The inconveniences are equally distributed. If English is the link language, the Tamils, Telugus, and even the Gujaratis will have the same problem. Their comforts and inconveniences are almost similar. But if Hindi is introduced instead of English, the Hindi people will have all comforts, we will have all inconveniences. for the sake of a fabricated national feeling. It is an artificial feeling. Nationhood depends on realities and it should not be based on enforced ideals. If you are a nation, you must have a language. Are you going to say that other languages are irrelevant or they should be subordinate to one language? If it is a subordination, it is not a freedom. We cannot call our country a free country. So the question is, constitutionally, socially, even economically, we must have a language policy where people are treated on egalitarian considerations and not other considerations. So if English is there, the inconveniences are almost equally distributed. But once in the parliament, when our former Chief Minister Anna was speaking in the Rajya Sabha, the others were insisting on 3-language formula. We should have Hindi for interacting with other states in India. We should have English for interacting with other nations. Then Anna responded that, should we have 2 windows in a house, one for the kittens, another for the dogs? And he said that one window is sufficient. Either of them could enter. Why do you have unnecessarily 2 windows? Today's, because our society should not be a stagnated society. Change and progress must be ensured. Not only change in the science and technology, change in the mindset, cultural considerations, the changes must be promoted. Sanskrit will not promote because no Sanskrit literature has anything against a graded social order. Can you point out a single Sanskrit literature? We stood against Varnasrama. We stood against Jati. We stood against prerogatives for the Brahmins. Priestly class occupies the top. The working class occupies the bottom. Working class is always at the bottom. And Sanskrit was never an integrating language. This language was glorified as Deva Bhasha, and others were prevented from learning the language because the authority and property must be the monopoly of a small segment. The same thing cannot be told about English. English enlarged our outlook. There was no ban to learn English. The English did not prevent Indians from learning English. It was thrown open to all. But Sanskrit was denied to many. So we need a link language. First, it should ensure dignity to all, freedom to all, and it should promote modernity, modernization. Yesterday you have seen in the newspaper that the Valentine's Day should be celebrated as Cow Hug Day. Valentine's Day, February 14th. Traditionally, it is celebrated Valentine's Day. Most of the progressive were not for free relationship between woman and man, but the thing is that they should have the liberty to choose their life partner. பெற்றோர்களால் தீர்மானிக்கப்பட்டு பெரியோர்களால் தீர்மானிக்கப்பட்டுன்னு வரதை விட they should have the liberty to choose their life partner, decide on their life. Valentine's Day we support it because it gives the freedom to the adult male and female. Not that we want a society without any regulations, not that. But there were days when the girls were married off when they were still in their age of 7, 8, 9. That was the condition, cultural constraint. No parent could retain a girl in his house beyond age 8. That will be a sin. So you should get the girl married before she attains puberty. So when the children were given in marriage, the children are not given the liberty to say anything about their life partner. In a marriage, during their adulthood, gives them the liberty. Valentine's Day is supportive of the freedom of the adults, male and female. Now they say that our cows were the backbone of our culture, Vedic civilization. So do they want to say that we are still in a pastoral stage? Can the world be stagnated pastoral stage? Cow is okay. Cow's milk is meant for cow's offsprings. But we usurped that milk. We were clever enough to exploit that cow. But we don't give the same respect to the cow's life partner. We don't revere the oxen. We simply ignore it. And they are butchered, their flesh is being exported by those people who call themselves vegetarians. So you don't have respect for buffaloes. Though nearly 60% of the Indians consume buffalo milk. That buffalo is not respected. And Vedic age, they say Vedic age, cows were sacrificed. And the horses were sacrificed. Shvamedam, horses were sacrificed. Gomedam, cows were sacrificed. Even human beings, Purushamedam, they were sacrificed. The age of sacrifice in the weaker ones are gone. Now the weaker ones have to assert their equal status with others. You cannot permit them to be ill-treated. We are for the neglected segments. So language policy also should take into consideration the interest of the neglected segments. So in the constitution there is no reference to mother tongue. There is a reference only to regional languages. Even Sanskrit is mentioned as a regional language. Earlier there were 14 languages in the list. Now there are 22 languages. Sanskrit is one of the regional languages. Can any one of you tell me in which region Sanskrit is the language? If they include Tamil as a regional language, Tamil Nadu, Tamil is the regional language. If Malayalam is the regional language, Kerala, we can call it regional language. If Marathi is the regional language, Maharashtra is the place. Which region has Sanskrit as its language? They mention Sanskrit a regional language without any region. Regionless regional language now consumes nearly 90% of the allocation meant for any language. Every year, some 300 crores, 400 crores, 500 crores of rupees are earmarked for the Sanskrit development. Tamil, though they acknowledge today as a classical language, not even 11 crore rupees. How we view this? If we neglect English, we will be useless in a globalized economy, globalized structure. If we give up our regional language or mother language, we will lose our identity. We want to have our identity as well as our relevance in the future world. So only 2 languages will be sufficient. But the National Education Policy documents say that children have the ability, even the kids have the ability to learn more languages. They quote from Mahabharata. When Abhimanyu was in the fetus of his mother, the father was discussing with the wife about the Vyuhams, Padma Vyuham. The child heard it. The child means that nowadays an undeveloped child heard it and retained it. That Abhimanyu was able to use it. But the thing is that learning was partial learning because the father had some other work he left abruptly, so he could not complete that process. So he could break the Vyuham, he could not come out of the Vyuham, so he died. So while discussing this issue, That is, this pre-school education must be formalized. That is one of the things which is there in the national education policy. I once asked the mothers with whom I was interacting, will a newborn baby be provided with biryani? The child has digestive power, but will you administer biryani for the child? To make the child to spell out amma or ma, appa or pa, it takes some 8 months or 9 months. To learn 40 words, the child takes 3 years. To construct a sentence, the child takes 5 years. And these people say that the child can be made to learn more languages. It is capable of. Why they do it? Is it not unscientific? Because those people who want to make education a commercial product, they insist on it. The play schools and other things must be commercialized. So they want to make it a formal education so that there will be a group who would make money out of it. So everything, even the language policy, is meant for promoting class interest. There is no government institutions are going to be regulated. But there will be institutions of excellence, eminence, which are not going to be regulated. The people, the youth of the privileged families, enriched families, they would have education there. They would be learning their education, higher education, professional education in English. But our masses will send their children to these government schools or government aided schools and colleges where they would be provided with education without any opportunity for English. In a global market, how he is going to fare it? So there is a conspiracy to sabotage the interest of the upcoming middle class. So our youth should be aware of it and must be prepared to resist it. You should raise your voice. Of course, I am not worried about the strength of this class. Everything will have a small beginning. When I did my MA, there were only 8 students. Not even a single student from the deprived community. The days are gone. Today, this Presidency College, I know that nearly 60% of the students are from the deprived areas, deprived segments. And the central government is proposing to convert this Presidency College as an institute of eminence. The teachers may have better conditions, but the poorer sections in and around Madras will lose an institution. If you have got social conscience, if you love your people, then think about it. Reforms are not meant to deny opportunities for the deserving sections. You should be a part of reform which would provide for the promotion of all segments. We want an egalitarian condition, egalitarian society. So this this policy of 3-language policy, some vice chancellor, former vice chancellor of the Anna University, used to lament very often. Had I known Hindi, I would have become highest official in the UGC. That is his personal interest. Not the 140 crore Indians are going to occupy the UGC chairmanship. Language policy is meant for the common people, where that policy had to be adopted, which would benefit all, which would ensure them equal opportunity and a better transformation in their lifestyle. I want to say a few things about Presidency College. The premier government institution in the state, Presidency College. In the past, governments never took education as their responsibility. in the age of monarchies. The kings never accepted providing education for the common people. This education, popular education, is the concept of modern age, democratic age. In 1820s, when Sir Thomas Munro was the governor of Madras Presidency, he ordered for a survey of education. That survey explained the conditions in India, in the Madras Presidency. At that time, there were 4 linguistic groups in the Madras Presidency. 11 districts were Telugu-speaking districts. 11 districts were Tamil-speaking districts. 1 South Canara, Kannada-speaking district. And 1 Malabar, Malayalam-speaking district. 4 languages were there. In addition, there was an Odisha-speaking area, Ganjam district. And they found that there was no scope for modern education in Madras Presidency. So he mooted for the creation of an education society. That created a presidency school, and from that presidency school, a presidency college was created. So the seed of this idea, this institution, was sown by Sir Thomas Munro. But today, the ruling clique will say that all of them were conspirators, Christian missionaries and the Britishers who were trying to sabotage the Vedic culture. But for the common people, it is the case. And even in Presidency College, Tamil, the English and Sanskrit were introduced languages in the beginning. Other languages, there was no scope. After much pressure, Telugu and Tamil were introduced later on. Even when Telugu and Tamil were speaking, the Sanskrit teachers were paid a higher salary. Tamil teachers were paid lesser salary. The disparity continued. Only when the Justice Party was ruling Madras Presidency in 1926 or 27, I think, when they moved a resolution stating that same work, same pay. This must be applicable to teachers. So Tamil teachers should also be provided with the same salary. So many years, the vernacular language was relegated to the background, and the Deva Bhasha was promoted at the cost of the common people. And this condition had to go, had to change because of the rise of consciousness among the people about their culture, their language, their opportunity. They raise their voice. You cannot be complacent. If you remain complacent, we may lose whatever we gained so far. We had to gain more, but whatever we gained should not be lost. So have that in your mind. Be, concerned about your generation and future generation, because our generation is at the verge of extinction. Because I am 79, my generation is almost over. But you are the generation which is going to decide the future of India. So have it in your mind and try to express your opinion openly, boldly. Mere discrimination is not sufficient. This is good, this is bad. You cannot hold it in your heart. You will have to voice out what you feel. And if you voice out what you feel, then that will have an impact on the government, on the society.
What is your idea on new education?
NAP is National Education Policy. There had been 3 national education policies so far. 1968, the first education policy was proclaimed when Indira Gandhi was the Prime Minister of India. And that suggested 3 language formula, 10 years of schooling, 2 years of the higher secondary education, then 3 years of the degree education. But it was only a recommendation, it was not imposed on states. We accepted 10 plus 2 only after 10 years. We were given that. And 1986, model institutions were created. But all the educational commissions were in favor of three language formula. 1968, they declared three language formula at the central. But 1967 itself, when DMK came to power with Anna as chief minister, he categorically stated that Tamil Nadu will follow only two language formula, English and Tamil. We are sticking to it so far. But the problem now is that while the earlier two education policies were only recommendatory, the present education policy is compulsory. They are enforcing it even without your consent. That is one. Second thing, the first two education policies were suggesting certain reforms in the existing system. But this present education policy is taking over education from the states to the center, arbitrary takeover. All the educational institutions will be brought under the central's control, including school education, including the preschool education. Everything will be brought under center. So, absolute centralization takes place in this education policy. Second thing, this education, how it is going to be administered, not by a democratic process, but by bureaucratic will.
Yes, sir.
Bureaucracy in Delhi will decide what to be done, what to be given up. Bureaucratic control, excessive bureaucratic control. And third one is that it suggests multi-faculty, cross-faculty, multilingual policies, doing your English literature. So 140 credits are there in your course. Nearly some 80 credits, 90 credits goes to the English literature. And the other credits will be distributed among the auxiliary subjects and other things. But here in this system, every education will be diluted in such a way that every stream will become a general education scheme. More credits would go to irrelevant subjects. Cultural education, folklands, arts. So many inventions are there. So, our generation could not focus on any particular subject for expertise. If you do botany today, you become botanist. But under the new system, because of the cross-discipline and everything, you will not become an expert in any subject. At the same time, if you are ready to spend lakhs of rupees in an institute of eminence, you will become an expert. Another important thing is that this system provides for freedom of exit, freedom of entry. At any time you can enter, and any time you can exit. This is the stated, but can you enter the institute, any institute, any time?
No.
Even the NEET will not permit you to enter into medical institutes. So entry is not easy, but exit, they say that after your 8th standard, if you are not prepared to continue it, if you are reluctant to face the examination, don't bother. They will give you a skill certificate, herding the cattle, everything, that will be included. They are not providing additional instruction for the skills. You are asked to go to the village or go to your parents, learn their skill, come back. They will issue a certificate. You can quit. So our national objective so far has been that there must be compulsory school education until they attain the age of 60. But the education policy which the present government introduces that by showing irrational liberality, they are prompting exit at every level. The poorer sections will quit their formal system and nobody will be there to complete the system. The same thing is extended to collegiate education. At any time you can quit. Will you come back?
No, sir.
There are more doors than windows in this system. That is a conspiracy to discourage the underprivileged sections from having their formal education. The conspiracy. There are so many other things. Today, there are universities to which the colleges are affiliated. The syllabus are framed by the expert bodies. The Board of Studies created and the academic council discuss it, and all of them have subject experts. The new education policy, subject experts are irrelevant. The bureaucrats in Delhi, they are now issuing syllabus and curriculum. They are sending it to universities to follow it and send it to colleges. Where is that academic freedom? There is no academic freedom. Then scholarships are reduced. Scholarships are reduced. Fees are hiked. It is, there is a system. All the higher education institutions, there are 55,000 higher education institutions in India. They are going to categorize them into three. Type 1, Type 2, Type 3. If you have got 25,000 plus students and 100 faculty, 100 departments, that is Type 1. And the Type 2, that is another category, little lesser. Type 3, something like your college or the presidency or the University of Madras. But minimum strength is expected to be 15,000. And then all the rural colleges will be closed because the school complex, the college complex, instead of schools and colleges at every village, every taluk, there will be institutions at the headquarters and people will have to come there. Are they going to provide free hostel facilities for the students? So more constraints for the larger sections. This is the education policy. So it is a social conspiracy in favor of the privileged sections, the traditionally privileged sections, and those who have enough money. So the corporatization of education is being done through this new education policy, national education policy, and we are opposing it from the very beginning, though they don't mind our opposition. Now we expect that the next generations will come up to our expectation. They will raise their voice adequately and will try to thwart it. The one thing I want to insist that every meeting I used to say that there is a cultural insistence that the world must be respected. You respect the world, that is a cultural requirement. Respect does not mean you should accept. You judge our utterances. Use your discretion. In your wisdom, it is acceptable, accept it, or reject it, reject it. So respect does not be construed as accept.
உன் கடவுளை விட உன் சாஸ்திரத்தை விட உன் முன்னோரை விட உன் வெங்காயம் விளக்கமாத்தை விட உன் அறிவு பெருசு அதை சிந்தி